Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to FLA 101. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to attend this seminar. We wanted to give you a brief introduction to the Forest Landowners Association. My name is Hayes Brown. I'm president of the Forest Landowners Association. I'm a landowner. I live in Alabama. I also have a forestry degree, but I practice law now full time. Wanted to let you know we're joined by our staff. Scott Jones, the CEO. Michelle Kane is with us. She's Director of Communications. Amy Palmer is also with us, Director of Administration. And we're also joined by Katie Moss, Director of Stewardship Initiatives and Regulatory Affairs. Just a word about FLA's history. The organization was formed actually in 1941. And we have in some sense followed our original mission ever since that time. That was when pulpwood was being cut into 5'3" sticks, no longer, but we're still here working on behalf of forest landowners, primarily in the area of advocacy, federal advocacy. And that's been our mission from the very beginning and still is today. Many changes in the business, many changes in the world of wood and all things made out of wood, and certainly many changes in generations over that time, but also still the same focus. Our vision is we'd like this is what we see happening in our windshields. We want to see in the future that private landowners are acknowledged for the economic and environmental contributions that they provide to society. And we, in a sense, would like to be recognized as valuable and treasured and worth preserving. And I think if society sees that truth, then it will make our job easier. We won't have to explain ourselves over and over about why we're doing good things for the environment and for the economy. It will be taken for granted. And we want that to be known and recognized by society. FLA's mission is really focused around four things, and it starts with private property rights. That's where pretty much everything starts, looking at how other countries handle private property rights compared to the United States. It's easy to take that for granted, but it's a useful reminder that without a strong property rights environment, the economic benefits that accrue from forests are more difficult to obtain. So we want to promote free and open markets, remove barriers to forest landowners providing their forests to the market, because that helps sustain them. And we are interested in primarily, as we always have been, in regulatory stability, knowing that some regulation is inevitable, it's necessary, but as long as that regulation has a certain degree of stability and wisdom, we'd like to help guide that. And then finally, taxation. As long as taxation is fair and is predictable, is certain, then that is a better environment. And if all of these things can be true, then you will be successful. There's no one here telling you how you should manage your forest or what you need to do. But if all these things are true, you will be successful in one way or another. Our unique vision, our unique perspective is that we want to, be an organization that is focused on the private landowner. And that's what's different about our organization compared to other organizations. Plenty of organizations out there, some of them are larger, some of them are better funded, but our organization is not part of a suite of constituencies, including landowners. Our organization is focused specifically and only on private landowners. You're not a component of a larger group. You are the group. And so if we want to have a successful organization, and we want to have a membership that's healthy and organized and working together, we have to remember that we have to sustain those people. Those people need to be sustained. In order to sustain the forest, it's often said, you have to sustain the forest landowner.
Thank you for those comments, Hayes. I'm Scott Jones, the CEO of Forest Landowners Association. I'm going to share a few comments with you about what our organization looks like, who our members are. You know, we've been around since 1941, as Hayes mentioned, and since that time, our goals, our foundational objectives as an organization have not changed. What has changed, though, is the scope of our membership and our reach. We now have members in almost every single state who own and operate around 55 million acres of forest land. And their land holdings, yes, we do have very large members in the organization, but we have members who are first generation or fifth generation that own land from 100 acres all the way up to 1 million plus. The goal for us, though, is that we want to be sure that we have these members across the country so that we can promote a pro-private forest landowner agenda. I would love to say that all of the committees in Congress and the administrators and regulatory agencies that we deal with all would come from forested regions and forested districts and states, but that's just not true. And so it's important that if we're going to promote a pro-private forest landowner agenda, that we have members across the country. This is just a little snapshot of who some of our members are. It's not all of our members, of course, but it's a snapshot. But when you look at it, a company like Green Diamond, of course, that's a family company. They're very large, but they're based in Seattle, Washington. But also members like Cedar Creek Land and Timber, Bruton, Alabama, Whole Forest Lands in Connecticut, Hunt Forest Products in Louisiana, Roseburg is in Springfield, Oregon, Congaree River, which is in the bottom right, they're located based out of Chicago. Jordan Lumber right next to them is in North Carolina. Cow's Land Company is Massachusetts. So we do have a spread. This is just a little snapshot of some of our members, a spread of members across the country that helps us, of course, enact this pro-private forest landowner agenda. Our members have about 2,100 members in the organization. They tend to stay with us a long time. We do not have a high turnover. And the reason I mention this is a lot of organizations, like other organizations you might be members of, like say a National Wild Turkey Federation or Quality Deer Management, that those Ducks Unlimited is a good example too, have very, very high turnover. So very low member retention rate. And I like to think that this is a testament to the value that we demonstrate to our members on a daily basis, is that our members tend to stay with us. Once they join, they stick with us. And that's something that we're very proud of. So another just quick note about our members, and the last note I'll make about who our members are, is that although they range in acreage, and it seems like at times that we just have a lot of large members, the vast majority of our members are 500 acres or less. Then that sweet spot between 500 and 1,000, and then 1,000 up. I mean, this is kind of reflective of what land ownership looks like in the United States, and our membership definitely reflects that. So not as important as who our members are, but the work that we do. So it's not so much who we are, but what we do as an organization on behalf of private forest landowners. And our work happens at the intersection that you see here. Of course, landowners are the beginning of where our work happens. We focus on landowners' needs, their unique focus, and what's going to make them successful with their land ownership. And that all happens by being economically successful with healthy markets for your wood, and having a policy in this country that recognizes your valuable role in not only rural economies, but in our environment as well. And that all happens by telling your story. We have to be able to communicate your needs in the right way to where it's clearly understood, so that the markets that we sell into understand that we're sustainable and that we're selling a good product. And we have policy that understands that we need freedom of operation on our properties and support from time to time, say like in a tax code. Let me give you just a few examples of these core tenets that I was talking about, that of our work that helps make you successful. And so regulation is a big part of this. The regulatory environment can very much be respectful of our property rights and our freedom, our need for freedom of operation on our land, but that's not a given. And I think anyone who's been around land ownership, and hopefully if you're new landowners, you're going to start seeing this. If you're multi-generational landowner, you've seen these questions come in about our ownership and our management and whether we're doing it right. But our approach on regulation is very proactive approach. We clearly understand landowner needs, and then we had to effectively communicate those back out to the regulatory environment. So we do this a lot through our species work, through Endangered Species Act. We also do it through Waters of the U.S., other issues that cross landowners' properties. But it's a very proactive agenda to help bridge that gap of knowledge between the regulators and the regulated community. The way we have unintended consequences through regulation is always through misunderstanding. And so we help create that understanding by letting the regulated community clearly hear from us as landowners. So we can't sit back as landowners and say, oh, why'd that bad policy get passed, when we're not the ones going out and communicating directly with the regulators and telling them what makes us successful. So it's a very proactive approach on our regulatory work. Another key component of what we do as an organization is our legislative work. Our legislative work was how we were founded. It's what we were founded to do, is be a grassroots advocate on behalf of private forest landowners. We still do that today. We humanize natural resource issues by putting a name and a face to issues that members of Congress might see as not just affecting industry. It's not just industry. Majority of private lands or forest lands in this country are privately owned. So we work to humanize that issue, put a name and a face on it. A good example of some of the work we're doing now is disaster recovery. So the Disaster Reforestation Act has been introduced to Congress at the end of January. And it's a bipartisan, bicameral piece of legislation that will allow landowners to receive fair market value compensation for timber lost or trees lost during a natural disaster. Right now, it's basis or fair market value, the lesser of which. So typically when we have a catastrophic loss on forest land, a landowner's recovery of that is zero. So we're looking to change that. That's an example of some of the work that we're focused on right now. I will note that through our legislative and regulatory work, these two are just examples of what we do. It certainly was not a comprehensive list of everything we do. You can find all that on our policy pages on our website. But the key to all this, and it's funny, I hear landowners say it sometimes, they say, all this regulation and legislation won't matter if we can't make money on our property, because if we can't make money, we can't continue managing it. It all comes with a cost. You have annual taxes, you have upkeep and maintenance. So you have to be economically successful with your property first, and then the regulatory legislative stuff happens as well. So strengthening market opportunities is a key focus of what we do. The way we go about doing this is through our markets committee. Our markets committee is populated with members from around the country. We have members from Maine, New Hampshire, Washington State, the South, Alabama, Georgia. So it's a very strong committee that looks very closely at these four areas where we're focusing right now, like emerging markets, carbon markets, ecosystem markets is existing markets, of course, and assurances of sustainability. We get questions all the time as landowners: is the product that we're putting into the marketplace truly sustainable? And it's great that we can say confidently, yes, we've been managing lands in this country, forest lands, for many, many generations, hundreds of years. But there are questions that we have to answer to ensure the markets that we're enjoying now will remain there and hopefully improve. So that's how we go about that. So we have our regulatory work. You heard that Katie is our representative there on staff working on that. We have our legislative work. Craig is our representative on staff who focuses on that. We have our markets work, which Michelle is a liaison to that committee and helps with that. So those are three key areas that we work on the association to ensure your continued success. You know, I just explained where the core competencies are as that we have as an organization, and they're all inside the Beltway. That's regulation, legislation, telling your story to those legislators and regulators so we get a good policy agenda, and then markets as well. But over the years, we have seen influences, our policy being influenced outside the Beltway. It's been creeping outside the Beltway for many years. It comes from things like corporations who say, we want to make sure we're more sustainable, or we want more assurances offered to us that that landowners are doing things right. We get questions about our forest management coming from the climate world, asking, should we be doing different things or managing our land differently because of climate change? We have global standards, and I work quite a bit on EU standards and standards coming out of the UK as well, that do influence our policy work. However, that's not what we do as an organization, is work on, corporations or ESG goals or climate goals. That's not our core competency. Our core competency is inside the Beltway and working with markets. So we knew we had to address this policy issues that were being influenced outside the Beltway. So we have restructured our foundation to help address these issues. So the Forest Landowner Foundation has been around since about the mid-'80s. And the focus of the foundation to begin with was on scholarships, next generation, providing education, research around different forest needs. But what has it evolved into now is really addressing these policy questions that are coming from outside the Beltway. And so last year, the foundation hired an executive director, Melinda Gable, to help add some more attention to these needs. So you can see here listed on this slide, the core areas that the foundation works in. And I want to point out just a few of them. Promoting U.S. wood is what we were just talking about, these assurances of sustainability, answering these questions that are coming up from outside the Beltway about whether what we're doing is sustainable or not. Also, I want to point out the developing career-ready forestry graduates. This picture you're looking at on this slide was taken the first week of March in Washington, D.C. These students in this picture are from Mississippi State, University of Idaho. They are from University of Florida and Stephen F. Austin University in Texas. We have these students come up to DC. They sit in on our board of directors meeting. They go to the Hill with us and directly engage with members of Congress on the issues that are most important to private landowners. This program has been going on now. I think it's in its 4th year now that we've been running this program. And we've had many, many students come through the program. I will highlight your next issue of the magazine, Forest Landowner Magazine, has a write-up not only of these students, but some past participants in the in this program. So this is a key area of work that the foundation does as well. We're really excited about the capability of the foundation to help fill in the knowledge gaps that we have on policy work that we do. And let me give you one quick example since we have a little bit of time, is when we go push legislation like the Disaster Reforestation Act, you'll have members of Congress ask you to say, well, exactly how many acres of forest land are affected by casualty or natural disasters every year? And of course, when you first do this, you say, we don't know. That's why we have a foundation. We go to the foundation, we pose this question to them. They do the research necessary so that we can have a fully informed policy agenda to help move these issues across the finish line. So that's just one example about the need of a foundation like this to help fill in the knowledge gaps we have in policy work that we do with the association.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Well, hopefully that survey has given you some better idea of what Forest Landowner Association does, the breadth and scope of the work of the association. And I think you'll agree that its mission has been refined over the years to be a very potent and a valuable organization to the forestry community. So what about you as a member? How can you get the most out of your membership? How can you do more than simply write a check for your membership, which we're grateful for? But if you'd like to become involved and become knowledgeable and be the best member that you possibly can be, let me give you some ideas. I have to confess that for many, many, many years, I was a member of FLA, and really all I did was write a check. Occasionally would look at the magazine, and that was really about the extent of it. I guess I was satisfied at that time with just trying to learn a little bit. I didn't attend meetings, and so really was the type member that wrote a check and received some information. But so if you'd like to take your experience further, let me give you some ideas. Number one, you'll receive an email from FLA periodically called FLA Focus. I know you get a lot of emails, but take the time to open it and read it. Open it and read it. And if you do that, you'll be up to date on the latest that FLA has to offer. Secondly, I mentioned the magazine, and if you'll take the time to review the magazine, read the articles in there, and especially the comments from staff, you'll get a better idea of what FLA is involved in, and quite likely learn something with each issue. I know that that's the case for me. And then further, if you'd like to promote the opportunities that you might have for networking, really need to come to the national meeting. This year's meeting is in Nashville. Each year it's in a location that's worth taking the time and money to attend. And the FLA meetings, I have to tell you, have the greatest speakers, really. And I know that your cost of attending is going to be paid back with both networking opportunities and learning about specific things. So take the time to come to the national meetings. Actually, every year we also go to Washington, D.C. and to lobby with our legislators. Now, if you've never done that, don't worry. If you come, we'll put you with someone who's done it before, and you'll have an opportunity to do something with your time that is very worthwhile, very rewarding, and may stretch you a little bit. So that's always good. So with that, just give you some opportunities to do more than write a check, but to help out FLA reach its full potential.
Thanks, Hayes. I'm Michelle Kane, Director of Communications for Forest Landowners. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the communications we send out. And Hayes already mentioned the big one that I send email-wise is FLA Focus. We send that out monthly. It's an e-newsletter. And every month it's just full of great information about what our team is doing and what's just going on in the private forestry sector. So a lot of great information there. If you're not already getting that, you can go to our website and sign up for that as well. And then the magazine, if you are a member, you'll get this 6 times a year. So you'll see a cover there with our latest issue, the succession issue, which has just so much information that we keep getting requests for additional copies. And that's also something that you can do as a member. If you see something that's really valuable, call us up, shoot us an email, say I want additional copies of the magazine to share, and we're happy to do that. We're also on social media. If that is your cup of tea, we have Twitter, we have LinkedIn, we have Facebook, and we make sure to share really important stuff on there as well. And really my goal is to make sure I am sending you the right information at the right time. I'm not overloading you with information that won't be useful to you. I'm making sure that everything that you get in your inbox is something valuable. Hayes also mentioned the national conference. It is going to be in Nashville this year, like he mentioned. We have a great lineup of speakers. The agenda is on the website. If you want to see who's coming and speaking for us, we've got some great topics, markets, women leaders, all sorts of great things. And who doesn't want to go to Nashville? So please, if you can, absolutely join us. There's lots of information on our website about how you can do that, and we hope to see you there. Lastly, I just want to thank you all for joining us today, taking the time to support FLA and learning a little bit more about what we do. So with that, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll answer them if we can. Thank you.
Any questions, comments from participants?
While people are potentially thinking of questions, I also want to add that FLA has state engagement teams in the Pacific Northwest, the Northeast, and then throughout the Southeast. So if you're interested in joining a state engagement team and getting involved on a little bit of a deeper level with the legislative process, feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you, Katie. Well, I'm not seeing any questions. So with that, we will wrap up for the day. If anything comes up and you do have a question, feel free to shoot us an email. And thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your support.